Dude, happy June.
Happy June 1st. Happy
Happy June
June.
1st.
Happy
Happy
Pride
Diablo
Month.
Day.
Happy Diablo
Oh, yeah.
Day.
Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride
Yeah.
Month. Happy Diablo Day. Happy 2 weeks into Tears of the Kingdom. Is
Oh
it 2
my
weeks in?
God. I couldn't possibly tell you. Feels
So,
like it's been 100 years.
dude, it's been 110 hours for me. But so when we spoke last time, you were like you had just started to turn around on the game. You
Yeah.
played it a couple days before we recorded.
Yeah.
And you were like, you had something spoiled for you.
Mhm.
You had trouble with like some of the initial like frame drops and everything.
Mhm.
But since I feel like from what I've heard from you is you're just kind of like you're like knee deep in Zelda.
Yeah, I definitely started off in a bit of a rough place. It was a rough start. But yeah, I think I'm almost 90 hours in.
Holy crap!
I think I'm
90?
I think I'm about 90. My Switch I think says played for 85 hours or more. And you know, like some of that is obviously like, yeah, just leave the game running, but I don't think that's more than like 5 or 6 hours. So I'm like, it's just crazy. I'm like, where did that time come from? I don't know.
It's really insane. I had to tweet an apology out from my Twitter because I like ignored every aspect of my life. Oh yeah, this is also our return. We missed last week. There's a little Memorial Day
action
shakedown.
Yeah.
Welsh had to go GTL down by the shore.
As you can see, I got a lot of sun.
Got a lot of sun.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's something about games like this where it's like you just get you can't do anything else. Like you just have to play this game. Like I can't play anything else. I can't do anything else. I can't read a book. I have to keep playing the game. Yeah, it's really remarkable. Like just the level of like immersion and the stuff that you can do in it, and how long it can just go on for if you really want it to. It's pretty crazy. I think I'm reaching the point where there's like a little bit of burnout, which I recognize from Breath of the Wild as well. It's like the same kind of way I felt there, where like I just spent, dozens and dozens of hours doing like just random things, wandering the world, doing side quests, shrines, all that sort of thing. Right. And then just realizing like, oh, geez, man,
I gotta stand up.
And like I played like 90 hours. Like I don't even know how much of the main story I have left. For all I know, there's probably like, a ton of other stuff I have to do. So I'm like, all right, there's other games coming out. Like I got to get back to my life. So I'm like, now I'm trying to kind of have a little more critical path action going on here, where I'm like, now I'm doing the disturbances in Hyrule and like kind of pushing forward.
That's exactly what I did. I think for the first like 70 or 80 hours, I was like, I would do like one chunk of the main mission, like 20 hours of exploring, another chunk of the main mission, then like 20 hours of exploring, which ended up to like 70, 80 hours. And then I was like, let me like just go do the main mission. And you still get sidetracked, but like, I would try and rein
connected
it in.
to what you're doing.
Yeah. And then I made a more concerted effort to just get to the end. And by the time I got to the finale, I was very satisfied with what I had played, and I have a lot more to explore, but now I feel more equipped to go back on my own time, like lazily on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
On the couch when I'm bored or something. Just I'll have plenty to do at any point now, and I have the game under my belt, and I can just enjoy it without
you've got the save file, Yeah, that's the thing I realized. Like there's so much stuff. Like there's so many side missions. Like every time you beat one of the main areas, like suddenly there's like 4 or 5 or 6 side missions that pop up. It's just like this is not you either like don't have any intentions of beating the game in a certain window and you just play it organically, or you like come back and do this stuff later, because it's like you can't do everything in one sitting. You'll be here for 200
every
hours.
Time you go to like one of the main areas, there's like 7 people that want you to do shit for them, and I just stopped. I'll just start like breeze blowing through dialogue. I started like skimming through dialogue and just like collecting all the quests. I'll be like, okay, now I just have them all. I'll just come back, because after the first two areas, I started doing that, because I just I wanted to keep going. I didn't want to get stuck in
Totally.
one place for too long after a
Yeah.
certain while. And now I can
Yeah.
just go back and finish it out. And a lot of times I would just go back. Something else would happen in the game where I'd be like, oh, I can go back and do that now. And I would just go bang it out. And it was great. But
Yeah.
overall, I mean, I finished it. You're still in progress, but I think overall, like, I really thought it was a much better game than Breath of the Wild. And I really like Breath of the Wild, but
Yeah.
it just added like the layer of like explorability and like the way you're able to like adapt to the sandbox in your own preferred way. It's added a whole new thing to the open world concept.
Yeah.
That really, I'm so impressed that Nintendo was able to pull it off on the scale that they have.
Yeah, I agree. It is interesting though. Like, I think I wonder, like, comparing the two over time. Like, the more I play it, the more I feel that way. Like, I've loved this experience. I think it's a really phenomenal game. And initially, I had that thought too of just like, oh, there's just so much more. Like, this fixes like all the issues I had with Breath of the Wild. But at the same time, there's like, I don't know. There's something about Breath of the Wild's just like simplicity that I'm now kind of like thinking back fondly on.
Sure.
Where it did have a bit more of that sense of like, this is a very like ambitious game in a lot of ways, and like you're kind of intended to go and I guess more of a path with like the story stuff. There's a kind of a bit more of like with Breath of the Wild, it felt more like, there's, you just get your abilities and then you just kind of go out and like, you can't build
like
yourself a ramp. You can't, there's just evil, go and find it. It was a bit more like with this, with like all the different like things you can attach to your arrows, the things you can build. It feels more about like the sandboxy nature than just about like pure Zelda exploration and adventure, which is great. Like, I think that's an amazing
Link's
thing.
Relationship to the world, and also the player's relationship to like Hyrule, and just like how we and the character both interact with it. It's so cool.
Yeah. I wonder, just like overall how, in terms of like replaying the games, I think Breath of the Wild will probably be more replayable, just because like you can literally go to the final boss, like at the beginning of the game, and like it makes sense for you to do that if you're good enough. And like, there isn't like the sky, the down below, the depths. Like if you're replaying Tears of the Kingdom, I'm like, oh my God, there's just so much shit I'm gonna have to do again.
I actually, for me, I think Tears is gonna be more replayable, at least for me. And I don't know if you saw that article, but you can beat Breath of the Wild in 90 minutes. I think the world record, Tears of the Kingdom in 90 minutes. I think the world record right now actually is like an hour 20.
I feel like I just saw something earlier on like a Reset Era thread. I think it's under an hour. I think someone got it under an hour.
God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The race is on, literally. Like people are trying to like get those numbers
like
done.
you can do what you described Breath of the Wild in tiers too.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But I don't want to say too much because I want you to finish the game.
Yeah, I've heard the whole ending kind of ramp up is pretty fantastic.
Dude,
so
the ending is.
I'm excited to get there. Woo, baby!
Oh, dude, one of Nintendo's like best set pieces. Like, oh God, just
bless you, Nintendo. We love your games.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it one more time when you finish it up. But
yeah, I'm sure.
But tonight, in a couple hours, Diablo.
True. It is Diablo 4 time. I can't believe it's finally here. It really is insane. Like, Diablo 3 came out over 10 years ago, 2012.
Wow. Who do they think they are? Grand Theft Auto?
Taking their sweet ass time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, it feels like this has just been in the works for so long. I mean, it has been. And like, just so many years of leaks, rumors, ideas. Are they going to make another one? Are they not going to make another one? And it's like, it's just here. It's happening. It's here tonight.
And it's going to be an interesting experiment in games as a service. It's going to be an interesting experience in how is Blizzard holding up, coming off the heels of that Overwatch 2 disaster, which when we recorded that, I wish we had a couple more days to actually sit with it, because the more I've thought about that, the more and more egregious that whole thing has become to me.
Interesting.
With Overwatch removing the PvE. Like basically advertising that they were going to have PvE in Overwatch 2. As like a selling point to bring people back to the platform, getting people to like spend their money by being on the platform, and then being like, nah.
It's a lot of work.
They definitely knew that they weren't going to ever have it. Like it's such an egregious like bait and switch. I think it's like a disastrous look on Blizzard. But we'll see what they do with Diablo 2. I mean, they've been super receptive to player feedback. The betas were fantastic. I'm really excited, and I did not even realize the game launched today. Because we get for some reason they're doing launches with UK midnight, which is interesting.
Interesting.
That's why it's
why.
7 p.m. Yeah, they're saying USA, you don't fucking matter.
UK, center of the universe, baby.
Somebody's saying it. Yeah.
If they're trying to win over the regulators.
Yeah, they're trying to win over the CMA.
CMA. Like, we know some of you want to play Diablo at midnight.
Win over the CMA.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, the thing about Blizzard is, like, you know, it's just such a big company, and it's easy to think of like it as a big whole. Like, it is a whole where it's like, oh, you know, shitty things with the Overwatch team. Like, do I want to support Diablo? Do I want to play Diablo, etc.? And like, that's very valid. But like, you know, there's such different teams, different groups of people working on these things. So it's like, things being weird with, you know, Overwatch doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to suck with Diablo.
Yeah, 100%.
And vice versa. You know, just if Diablo goes great and like they've got a great team that listens to the community and, you know, does this and that, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do the right thing with Overwatch or World of Warcraft, you know.
Yeah.
They're just such a big company. But
because and even in Blizzard, like Team 4, right? Team 4 is like the team that oversaw Overwatch. Like, that's like an internal dev team. Like, there's so many internal dev teams that essentially are existing as like independent developers because these IPs are so sprawling and expansive.
Yeah,
it's just a shame to see what happened with Overwatch. Like, to go Jeff Kaplan have this brainchild of this awesome MMO with these really cool characters that have this awesome lore and this cool world, and then to have it stripped down to like a team shooter, which Jeff Kaplan was probably still like, oh, we could still do some cool stuff with this, and then to have the PvE even taken away, and then have it turned into just a service shooter that's free to play, and it's just meh.
Just such a what a journey, man! What a journey for that franchise.
And then he dipped. They probably knew they weren't gonna do it when he around the time that he dipped last year, or like a year and a half ago. I'm sure.
I would guess
they weren't gonna do it.
One of the big reasons that he left, was like the higher ups were basically saying like, this isn't going to happen. You know, we're not going to give you the stuff for it. We're not going to let you hire the people you want to hire. Like,
just
change the plan.
They just to me, it just sounds like they did not want to make something that would not have a constant return of a cash flux, cash flux. And I think they just, you know, they were like, probably saw like $20-$30 PvE packs is just not monetarily worth it, even though
for
would still make a profit on it, just not billions of dollars.
Not as much money. Why would you make some money when you can make all the money?
All the cash.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're at. But there are a couple other big announcements, and we missed some stuff last week, so we'll dip into some stuff that happened that we missed. We missed some stuff in the PlayStation Showcase, which is sick. When we talk about some of that, maybe we can dive into some of the games too. I know you're hot on Metal Gear, on Snake Eater. I know it's a big one for you.
Yes, I am. That's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. We'll talk a little bit about it too when we talk about we talk about some Sony stuff. But let's say there's a good announcement today that I know you're going to be hyped for this too. So we got a big one from Meta, formerly Facebook.
Yeah, the nice folks at Meta have revealed a new VR headset, the Quest 3. Believe it or not, 3 does come after 2. I would say 4.
No, but yeah, you had it right. Yeah. Meta reveals Quest 3, a sleeker VR headset with notable upgrades, dude. Notable upgrades.
Wow. Yeah, not notable.
Facebook's next virtual reality device will be out later this year, price starting at 500 smackaroos.
5,000 pennies.
So
5,000 pennies.
I'll read this little excerpt. Officially announced Thursday, the upcoming VR device will be more powerful than a Quest 2. Well, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah. Meta claims the newer Snapdragon chip powering the device will have twice the GPU capability of the old Quest 2, thanks to the new pancake lens optics, which I did not know was a thing until you explained that to me earlier. I think that's hilarious terminology.
Indeed it is, yeah.
First seen in last year's Quest Pro, it will also be about 40% smaller than the Quest 2, which was already reasonably compact. The Quest 3 will also feature a high-resolution display. I love that. High-resolution display. And a much higher quality pass-through cameras, now in color, and assisted with a special depth sensor. They'll let users better see the real world around them without having to take off the headset and open the door to more sophisticated mixed reality experiences.
Yeah, dude. The race is on for AR and mixed reality experiences. Like that seems to be the big push right now.
Yeah, I think I think so too. Let me actually, we can play this video here
Yeah,
from
this sexy little branding video here.
this little branding video. So yeah, I mean I know you're pretty hype over some of this.
Yeah, man, I love VR. I've been a long term VR supporter. For anyone listening at home who doesn't know that, I'm a big VR guy. Been there since the early days of the Oculus DK2, the development kits when those were first coming out. Um, it's been an interesting journey. Like I think it has so much potential. I think the software is really what needs to come out more than new hardware. But
For
I think
sure.
seeing so much cool hardware is really phenomenal. Like just the way it engages your body, your mind in new ways, like the social experiences you can have with it. I think it's never going to replace traditional gaming, but I think like it really is a phenomenal thing on its own. This
Yeah.
is very exciting. Like I have a Quest 2 and it's great. Like the wireless experience, the all-in-one kind of experience, like the seamlessness of it is really phenomenal. I think it's like gotten it into so many more hands. Um, but the big question is obviously like what you sold a bunch of them. So like, how do you keep people interested? How do you keep people
Yeah.
invested? Like, are people going to buy this new headset? How are you going to pitch it to folks?
And people are not they're not as big of tech heads as like the average person is not as big of a tech head
Yeah. Like your
as
average person who bought, a Quest 2 during the pandemic to move around a little bit, and play some Beat Saber, like, do they know a new one's coming out? Like, are they going to know about it? Are they going to buy it? That kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, it's interesting. Like the space right now, PC VR seems to be kind of dead for the most part, which I think is a bummer. But
That's kind of insane too.
it's interesting. Like I hope Valve comes out with a new headset for PC VR
Yeah.
stuff. That's supposedly been in the works for a while. There's been leaks about that. They might be doing their own like standalone thing within the Steam ecosystem that can connect to the computer, that kind of thing. But it seems to be, I unfortunately, like the walled garden approach seems to kind of be the way it is right now. Like, PlayStation VR has their own stuff, their own software with a great headset, great hardware. Meta's got their thing here with the Quest stuff. Apple might be coming out with one on Monday, which is
Yeah.
going to be very interesting to
Seems like
see.
very
Like,
strong rumors on the Apple thing,
I
which
think
I'm
this drop of the Quest 3 info, I think, was to get ahead of
of
that. I mean, I guess
Apple.
we'll find out, but
I kind of wonder. So yeah, I wonder a couple things. One, I wonder like, do you think like the Meta Quest 3 was like rushed in any way just to like get ahead of Apple at the cost of like making something that's like a true technological advancement? Because
mm,
from my understanding, just from even speaking with you, like the PSVR 2 made some like big tech jumps,
mhm.
especially including like eye tracking. And
Yeah, yeah.
from my understanding, the screen that's used inside of it's also one of the nicest screens used in VR to date.
Hmm.
So do you think like the MetaQuest 3 will out tech the PSVR 2, let alone what is
Mm,
supposedly a very expensive like Apple
yeah.
Apple headset?
That's a good question. I mean, it's tough to say because Meta is such a big company. They have so much money,
Right.
less now than they did, I think, last year, but they still have plenty to go. And, what they did with the Quest and Quest 2 was kind of like subsidize things a bit by making the headset, more affordable just to get more people in the ecosystem. So I do wonder, this is $500. It's nothing to sneeze at, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not,
expensive.
it's not 1,000. It's not, $2,000. It's 500, which is the same as the PSVR 2. I think that's 500.
I think it's actually I
550.
think it's 550. I think the
Yeah.
MetaQuest is $50 cheaper,
Yeah.
and you need a PS5. So it's really $1,000 investment, which is
Yeah. And I
it's a
wonder
lot.
if they're going to be doing the same thing with this that they did with the Quest 1 and 2, which is like, $500 is still a lot of money, but it could be that they're actually going to lose money on the hardware still just to
Mm.
get this out to people. And they
I
did
didn't know that.
push
I
things
didn't even know they were
forward.
losing money on the hardware.
Yeah, I believe they did on the first and the second just to like literally get it out into more people's hands.
Get people in
Um,
their ecosystem, which
yeah,
like,
exactly.
hey, and that's something we see with the consoles too. Like
Hmm.
Xbox and PlayStation, they lose money on their consoles, but they want people in their ecosystem. That
Yeah, they want that data.
you
They want to sell
build
that
the
software.
ecosystem, and then you garner the right to have people hooked in on your exclusives.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah.
already seeing that in VR. It's funny. VR right now reminds me of like the PS1, PS2, Xbox 360,
Yeah,
Xbox
yeah.
era, where like there's so many
Everybody had a
exclusives,
console, yeah.
and there's just so many like incompatibilities between the platforms that like there's a lot of room for growth on these, and I think eventually it'll come around to a point where it's all just kind of like almost
Yeah.
all the same thing, except for probably like certain exclusivities. But
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? You can feel we're in like early generation hardware here.
Yeah. I think where for me personally, like what I'm most interested in isn't necessarily like a better screen or stronger graphics. Obviously, I do want those things. For me, it's more about making the devices smaller, lighter, and more seamless, which is actually interesting. It seems like they are going in that direction. The Quest 3, they're saying the processor is like twice as powerful, which, you know, could be marketing stuff, but I believe them, I guess right now I kind of have to. But it's like 40% slimmer. I don't know what the weight difference is going to be, and like that I think is
That's
huge.
a big drop.
That is a huge drop.
This is a PS4 2. This thing's beefy.
Yeah, it's a beefy boy.
This is a big boy. I mean, it's slim around like the band part of the head, but like the actual headset, that's that's pretty big.
And that compared to the earlier headsets that came out, that thing is actually pretty sleek as well. They've gotten consistently smaller because I think in the long run, you're selling people on it in general. Like people want to look cool when they do things, so like they don't. It's a hard sell for some people to be like, oh, I have a big toaster on my face,
right?
But,
and now those. I will say that the Quest controllers look really nice because these are
they are.
I think one thing I'm just holding the PSVR 2 and the PSVR 2 controller up for people who are listening, but one thing that I go back and forth, I was going back and forth because the controllers look crazy for 3, like they're so slim,
so sleek.
They're so slim and so sleek, but with the wraparound design, if this is what gives you hand tracking, like I almost don't notice this because when you're playing, you don't really notice, like, because it's wrapped around your hand, so it's not really like it's not bothering me in any way because it's not infringing on my movement or making contact with my hand at all.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think again, like just the seamlessness of it, like the more things get lighter, sleeker, that kind of thing, I think will improve things a lot. Because like for VR, it's all about being immersed, using your body, moving your head, moving everything. And like, we compromise to get that experience right now by kind of having these like big clunky things on our faces. So I think like streamlining it will make it just easier to get it into people's hands, easier to do stuff with it. And I think based on what I've heard and read, like I think we're going to see Apple. It's funny because we're going to know in a couple of days, but Apple's I think is going to be really, really slim and sleek. I think that's going to be their big push for it because like these companies are trying. They've realized that like while gaming is great and obviously there's always going to be VR games to go along with it, I think they're realizing like that's not going to be like what really makes it become totally mainstream. They want the business, the enterprise uses for it.
100%.
So I think Apple's going to make a big push for that. Meta's doing that here with like the color pass through, the AR stuff. Like that's going to be really cool. And I can't wait to see more stuff kind of take advantage of that. Because right now, like with the existing headsets, like with my Quest 2, you can use the pass through, but it's like black and white. It's grainy.
Same with the PSVR 2.
Yeah. So like that might sound like, oh, color pass through, like whatever, but like that's
right,
big.
now that you're describing it too, it's like you think of like trying to think of a good example, but you think of like a doctor walking around a patient's room where they're seeing their file history like next to their heads and whatever because they they don't have to take off the pass through because they don't have to take off the helmet because they have the color pass through. It's how do you make it more accessible for B2B and industry? You want people to have this thing on. You want them using it as augmented reality. You can only do that if you have high quality pass through.
Yeah, I think Meta still has an uphill battle purely by the nature of them being Meta and who they are. Because I think, a lot of people are fickle and kind of up and down on privacy and how much they care or not. But like,
yes,
Meta's, they have a complex history and locking yourself
sign up
into...
for that class action. There's like a solid chance people are going to get a couple $100 each.
Oh, from for what?
Because when they sold all the data to, I forget who it was,
Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica.
Oh,
when they
wow.
illegally sold everyone's data to Cambridge Analytica, there was like a lawsuit for a lot of money, And like I think if every single person does it, like you'll get like $4 or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
like so many people aren't going to sign up. There's like a
Oh
solid chance
yeah.
people will get like a few $100 each.
Oh wow, not too bad, not too shabby. But yeah, case in point,
Um,
like that's it's an uphill battle of like when you're talking about an ecosystem of like doing more non-gaming, more stuff, more like life, business, work, etc. in VR. I think people are going to start asking themselves more like, who am I kind of giving this
right.
information to?
Yeah, yeah. 100%.
So I think Apple, who they're a corporation just like anybody else, but I think they have
right.
a pretty good track record as far as
And
privacy
they've
goes.
taken like, yeah, exactly. They've taken like pretty hard stances on privacy accessibility,
Yeah,
which is actually kind of a big shock for such a big corporation that they've kind of taken
yeah,
it
yeah.
on themselves to be like, control your giving like consumer control over data. I wonder if there's even some regulatory stuff behind that, because
Mm-hmm.
it almost seems like too user friendly, like
Yeah,
too
yeah,
consumer
it's like,
friendly.
yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing behind the
When I was
scenes?
working in advertising, even all that stuff that they did around the data control, it really messed up how corporations would be able to buy and service ads, hyper
Mm.
targeted ads to individuals based on like your pixel information, your cookie
Yeah,
information,
yeah.
all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It was actually like a big issue. That the Apple privacy options that were given to people on their phones really hurt Facebook's pocket, like
Yeah, that
really
was a big
bad,
deal.
really, really bad. And it might have even been, I wonder if how much of a driver that was to push them away from advertising, as that was like Facebook's whole big thing. Facebook
Yeah,
was
yeah.
basically an ad sales platform, and that was really their money driver. And I wonder how
Mm-hmm.
much of that hit on privacy really drove them towards trying to be the leader of the metaverse, which
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't think is going very well for them. I think they might be a little too early.
I think it's funny that like after all that too, it's like yeah, it's a good point. They were kind of the two companies that were fighting over the privacy thing, and now it looks like they're going to be the two companies that are going to be fighting over the sphere, the metaverse sphere as a whole. I think, I mean, as of right now, again, there's some PC VR stuff here and there, but the three main ones right now are PlayStation VR, MetaQuest, and presumably the Apple headset that they're going to come out with. And it's like I think the PlayStation VR is gonna they'll be fine. They'll keep making games. Gaming is their thing. You're not going to be doing work, in your PlayStation VR. But I think the real heated competition is going to be between Meta and Apple for just like that AR space, that workplace space, the ecosystem, which
Yeah,
is cool. I mean, it's cool to see the tech get pushed forward. Like we're going to see what
yeah,
happens.
yeah. It's going to be interesting to see the tech moving, and as the hardware becomes generational, seeing how the advancements are. We just
Yeah,
saw it with phones. We see it with home consoles. This is like what's next. It'll
yeah.
be
We have
interesting.
supercomputers on our eyes.
It'll be cool if Apple can become that like that industry leader in
Yeah,
innovation again, because
that
it's
that
been a while.
futuristic tech.
It's been
Like.
a while.
Mhm.
It's been a while, but at the same time, I don't think there's been like a lot of avenues for them to do it.
Uh-huh.
So I think it'll be interesting to see what they got. This could be a big moment. We'll see. I'm excited, and
Yeah.
I'm more of a fan of AR than I am of VR, just because
Mhm.
I think it has so much utility. I think it has such cool
Yeah, for sure.
utility for people, and I think that only really becomes accessible when we start wearing glasses. Like Google
Yeah,
Glass was actually, I thought, way
lighter weight things, slimmer
lighter
things that are
weight.
less
Yeah,
intrusive. Yeah,
Google Glass was actually really insane. I was lucky enough to put one on when it was out.
I
It
always
was
forget about that thing.
really, really cool. Like you basically could put on Google Maps, and it's like it's almost like having a contact lens, an AR contact lens on,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
just a little piece of glass, and it would like show you like the idea was you'd wear it when you're riding a bike, and you
yeah.
would just see like the arrows of where you're supposed to be going. So it'd be like
That's
straight,
cool.
like
Yeah,
left in X amount of feet, and it was
yeah,
just like
yeah,
existed over your eye, but you could like still see. It
yeah.
was insane, and
It,
I that kind of utility I think can go, for on forever, and I want to see what the next step of that
yeah.
looks like, making that more accessible to people, and what kind of development applications come out of it.
I'll never forget the only time I ever saw Google Glass in real life was when I was at the PlayStation 4 launch event in New York
Wow,
City,
that's huge.
downtown, and I was like standing in a line with a bunch of people, and there was this like guy walking around. He looked important. I don't know who the hell he was, and he had Google Glass on, and he was just like
It
walking
looked
up and
so
down the line, and
stupid.
I was just like, what's that guy doing?
It looked so stupid and ridiculous, but it was so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
It was so cool because it looked like he had like a little metal headband on.
yeah, yeah.
So dumb. But no, I'm excited. We'll see what they got. I'm stoked to see it. But
see what they're cooking up.
Speaking of cooking stuff up, one of the things that we missed, and we can talk about the PlayStation Showcase with this a little bit, but one of the things we missed last week was the Project
Speaking
Q.
Of cooking up hardware.
The Project Q from
the PlayStation U.
Sony, our personal friends over at Sony. Yeah, the PlayStation U.
The PS5 U.
So Project Q was announced last week at the Sony Showcase, which was kind of a surprise, but kind of not. I feel like I had heard rumors about this, but it was still kind of a shock. It's a really interesting device. It's basically, I'll just read this little quip. At long last, Sony has a new handheld gaming console on the way, kind of, revealed at the PlayStation Showcase in May, which, I guess now it's June 1st. Yeah. Project Q is a streaming device that can transmit PS5 games directly from the console and onto its screen. Sony is entering the cloud gaming territory that Microsoft has had a major presence in for years, but Sony has its work cut out for it when it comes to marketing this hardware and convincing consumers as to why it's better than a tablet or smartphone using remote play and a Bluetooth tethered controller. Everything about this to me sounds horrendous. Like, I think this is such a bad idea. I'll just read about the price and everything really quick. So there's no release date yet. There's some rumors. Tom Henderson from Insider Gaming is claiming that it'll launch in November, which I also think is kind of a big L. I kind of think they need to get this thing out like this summer, if I'm being honest. I think this shit needs to be like pushed. And I'll explain why in a second. And then another unknown is the price. Basically, they're comparing this here to like the OLED, which is MSRP of $350, the Steam Deck, which is $500, and Logitech's G Cloud gaming handheld, which is another $350. I think, a couple of thoughts here from me. Basically, I'll just hold on. I'll read how it works. So how the Project Q works, you still need to own a PS5 if you want to use a Project Q, and any games you want to play on it must be installed on your console. Once you've met those requirements, you can stream games from your PS5 to handheld console using remote play over Wi-Fi. You won't be able to stream virtual reality games through it, so PSVR 2 underscore out of luck. I don't know why they would want
darn.
to.
I don't know why you would want to do that.
But basically, I have a couple thoughts here.
Yeah.
One, the first thing, the price. I think this thing needs to be like $200 or less.
Dirt cheap. It's got to be
dirt cheap. This to me is like an accessory along the same lines of
the headset. Yeah, literally.
Exactly.
Like the headset.
This is like essentially you're buying an 8-inch screen with like nothing else inside of it. Like they're comparing the price to a Steam Deck, an OLED, and I don't know too much about Logitech's like G Cloud thing, but like even the G Cloud, right? The reason why I think Sony was able to shit this thing out is because they had done like a lot of this R&D is done already in terms of
the remote play stuff has been around for a while. The remote
play, the controller. The only like new thing about this is the screen, which is a 8-inch HD LCD screen, and they're saying it's going to be 1080p 60 FPS, which is that actually is really good. The 1080 60
that's
FPS
perfectly fine for streaming on a small screen like that.
Yeah, but I think remote play is kind of jank. And when it's good, it's awesome. When it's jank, it's unplayable.
Yeah, literally.
I just don't think I don't think this is a very complex device in any way. Like, it's basically me plugging my phone into a backbone controller or like one of those mobile controllers and tapping into the app and doing remote play. Like, it's the same exact thing. So I think this thing has to be like super, super cheap for people to actually want to buy it. And like I said, what I was saying, I think November's too late. The main reason I would buy this right now is because I want to play Final Fantasy 16 in bed at night.
Yeah.
I don't want this in November. You know what I mean? Unless it's going to coincide with like Spider-Man. But even Spider-Man, that's not really like a game I want to play in bed because you're swinging around like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like too much of a versatile game for me to think about playing in bed versus like Final Fantasy 16, where I'm going to have like, I'm going to want to like, it's a massive open world.
You're exploring, you're taking some time,
around.
Dialogue trees, etc.
Exactly. I'll just, play an hour in bed and then I'll pass out.
You can actually do remote play on your Steam Deck, believe it or not. I've set it up before. You got to jump through some hoops, but to me, it was actually it was a pretty good experience.
Oh, because you just get
all
that
things
remote play
considered.
app that's like on the Windows, like the for
Yeah,
Linux.
you have to do some funky Linux stuff just to like download a third party thing that kind of like connects
Sure.
to your PlayStation. But once you do it, it works fine.
Huh.
Which
So
is
so
yeah,
yeah, what are your thoughts here? Because I just gave mine, and
yeah.
I'm very mixed on this thing. I think for me to even buy it, it's gonna if it's over $200, it's gonna be a big hesitation.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I've gone back and forth on it. At first, when this was announced, I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean, physically, I hope that's not the final
dude,
design because that looks ridiculous.
this is like the ugliest thing.
That is maybe the ugliest device I've ever seen.
We both said this. It looks like when you're a kid and you look up like Xbox 960 or whatever, like
Yeah, it's like the leaks,
1020,
like PlayStation 6 leaks.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, exactly. And you look it up on Google and you find the fakest, ugliest Photoshop of like just like something that shouldn't work, like design wise. It's a horrible design. It looks like shit. It looks terrible, but like, I mean, I love the DualSense controller. So hopefully ergonomically it'll feel good.
Yeah, I think that'll be their saving grace, like the fact that like the DualSense is a great controller having that built in. But like I said, I initially thought this was really stupid because like I have very strong feelings about like streaming games in general. I think like generally speaking, it's not a good experience, at least compared to playing a game locally. But I've gone back and forth on it a bit because like some of the comments, like I just said before, like, oh, making a Wii U joke, but like I owned a Wii U and I actually loved it. I thought it was really a phenomenal console. And what made it so great for me was that controller. The fact that like at any point
that's the one Nintendo console I missed.
You could press a button and swap the game from the TV onto your controller. And obviously the Switch can do something similar now, but the whole game, yeah. And it was basically streaming. That's my big question about this. Like the game was streaming from the Wii U to the controller over like a very high speed local Wi-Fi connection, like directly between the device and the console. And if this actually does something similar where like it can connect not over your network, but like directly to the PlayStation and through them, owning both parts of the hardware
network.
If you can get like, really, really minimal delay, really crisp, minimal compression, I think it could actually be pretty great if it's similar to that experience. Just being able to like be playing something on the TV and then, you say, I want to go
lay on the couch.
Yeah, I want to lay on another couch. I want to go up to my bedroom, something like that, just to be able to like press a button instantly, seamlessly, hook into it. Like there's something there. But if it is just kind of like similar to how remote play is currently, where it's just like over Wi-Fi or whatever, like I think this is competing against, like you said, like, a phone and a backbone controller. It's like, what about this? I think it has to have some of that special sauce where like there's either some kind of little like operating system that they have on there that makes it more seamless, like, a simple like a button press that just brings you into it, or some kind of local area connection, something like that. But like having the dedicated hardware for it, like with the controller, if it has like the haptics and the trigger stuff and whatnot, like I don't know. Like I could be a believer. I think I would need to really like see it firsthand. Cause like there is a lot to be said for just kicking back and playing something on a smaller screen, like, in your lap or something like that, like around the house or around the apartment.
100%. I played Tears of the Kingdom probably 30, 40 hours handheld at least, which is for me a lot. I normally like will play the game docked. But I think it's just like, with work from home now and everything, it's nice to stand the fuck up and go outside.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Sit outside and play it.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love my Steam Deck, even though, it's a little funkier, it requires some tweaking, but just like having the option to take a game you're playing on a powerful console or system and then go to another room is like a big deal. So I'm willing to be convinced that this is a good idea. I'm very open to it. I think I'm curious. I'm really curious more than anything. Cause like I said, if it can get that like, minimal delay, minimal compression, and have it feel like you're really playing a native game, while you're in your house or over Wi-Fi, down the street or something like that. Like we'll see if they've got some proprietary stuff that kind of like some secret sauce. Cause like I said, I used remote play on my Steam Deck using like a third party thing. And it was actually a pretty decent experience. Like obviously there was, some compression, this and that, but I was like, hey man, like not bad. I'm playing a game I was playing like Neo 2 on my PS5, and I was like, I want to see if I can play that in bed, and it worked pretty well.
That's awesome.
So we'll see. It's so interesting, like all of this stuff with just like streaming games, cloud gaming, streaming, like Wi-Fi over the internet, like all sorts of things.
People are making big pushes for this now, like big pushes.
Yeah. And if this device, with its whatever, I'm curious if it's even going to have its own kind of like special operating system that they're working on. Like,
yes,
if this can do the remote play or do cloud gaming through their, whatever service Sony has, like, there you go. They're competing.
There's a lot of unknowns about it. I've seen a lot of comments of people being like, well, wait for people to jailbreak it. What are you going to jailbreak? I don't think this thing's going to have a SIM card.
I think it's
SIM
probably going to be like
a SIM card slot.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be like a Android tablet with like, I don't even know like what chip would be in there.
It's what I'm saying. I think this thing is going to be a very closed off device that's not like the jailbreaking won't have a lot of utility for you. I would imagine it won't even have a SIM card because its intended use is purely for
or SD card, you mean?
Oh, sorry, SD card. Yes, SD card because it's expecting you to have a local device that has the games for you. There's no need for an SD card to boot up games. Or sorry, a remote device that has the games because there's no need to have a SD card for local games on the thing. That's not the intended function. So I can't imagine this will have a lot of jailbreak utility. There's a lot of unknowns. I want to see exactly what it's going to be. I think if it is a local network device, like you're saying, I think that would be huge. I think also like traditionally local network connections have like a very like I've never experienced a device that has like a smooth local area network connection. I think about like the Switch sending photos and videos from my Switch to my phone, and that uses a local area network connection.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. It is so bad. And I know Nintendo is like traditionally very bad with those types of things, software wise, but it would have to be some kind of very nice experience where it just very seamlessly connects, and we'll see what it is.
Yeah, it's cool to see Sony
what it
making...
is, folks. Sony's got the best area LAN connections. Nintendo, not so much.
Seeing them making hardware is cool. Like I love hardware. Give us some weird stuff. Who cares? Maybe I'll buy it.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, I'm privileged enough to probably afford it when it comes out, but if it's over $200, I'm really gonna have to think about it because it's gonna be kind of a needless want. And like I said, right now the biggest thing I can think of is wanting to play Final Fantasy 16 in bed. But if it's coming out in November, that motherfucker's gonna be long gone in my life. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, switching it over from PlayStation back to Activision / maybe Microsoft.
We can't get enough.
Can't get enough of the man, the myth, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Kotick himself. Good God, look at this guy. He's a cartoon villain.
He looks like he's the main villain of Diablo 4.
He's like a James Bond villain. Like
he really is.
He's always got that like that smile on his face. Like
so this came out a while ago where they, Blizzard came out, Bobby came out and said they did an internal investigation at Blizzard and they found no repeated patterns of harassment and workplace misconduct. And then this week, Bobby had a Variety interview, which I actually didn't read. I wish I did read it more. Which I think he had an interview with Variety and maybe the Washington Post. I think he had two big interviews this week, which they came off to me as like very strange puff pieces about a guy. Very puffy pieces about a guy who doesn't really deserve the puff, if I'm being quite honest. He's done a lot of...
The Variety one had this picture of him giving these like big puppy dog eyes to the camera, like looking like, like just so he's like,
please buy my next yacht.
Yeah, like
please buy Diablo 4. I need a new 100-foot yacht, please.
I'm a good guy, man. Like I'm just trying to keep my company afloat, And it's
our widow investigation didn't find no misconduct here.
Yeah, we investigated ourselves and we found
giving the uwu eyes.
Yeah.
But Activision Blizzard CEO denies culture of harassment and blames unions for the company's problems, which is
What
like,
a surprise.
yeah, what a surprise. It's actually like really funny that he said that. And the other thing he said was that this is really, really funny. He said that he's a fan of unions because his mom used to be a teacher. Here we go. Well, while Kotick was quick to blame unions for many of the company's personnel issues, he also claimed to support unions, stating that he's not anti-union because he's a member of a union himself, joining SAG-AFTRA for his appearance in Moneyball.
That is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Because of his mother, where he went on to say, I have a mother who is a teacher. I have no aversion to a union. What I do have an aversion to is a union that doesn't play by the rules.
Whose rules, Bobby? Yours?
Bro, what are you talking about? These are like the two flimsiest fucking excuses I've ever heard as to why you're not anti-union. You're the boss of a multi-billion-dollar company. Why would you not be anti-union? Are you insane?
Yeah,
you're
like
dumb for not being anti-union.
Like the SAG-AFTRA thing, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because like,
dude,
I'm in SAG-AFTRA.
You're in SAG-AFTRA.
They're fine, but it's like they're fine for people who are like, you know, working actors. Like, this man is a billionaire. Like, that doesn't mean anything. That literally means nothing. He probably pays his $100 dues biannually just so he can, like, you know, say he's in the union
and so he can get fucking residuals from Moneyball.
Yeah, the Moneyball residuals. Like, it's like, that's just insane. That comes off to me as saying, like, you know, oh, I can't be like racist because I have a blank friend or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not anti-union. I'm like, my mom was in a union. Like, I'm in a union. I love it. And it's like, man,
it's so insane. It's so insane. It's like it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard him say. One of the most,
the guy's a character. He's funny, unfortunately.
But, so in this whole interview, he goes on to say that the what does he say about the unions? Let me see. He says basically that like the unions were attempting to, let me see. He basically goes on to say that the unions were attempting to destabilize the company, which here we go. We've had every possible form of investigation done, and we did not have a systemic issue with harassment ever, he said in an interview.
Ever.
But what we did have was a very aggressive labor movement working hard to try and destabilize the company. Bro, I doubt it. Why would the workers who work for your company, who you pay, want to destabilize the company? They probably just want to not get sexually harassed and probably want fair pay and not to have
a living wage.
Developer crunch.
Dude.
That's destabilizing your company. Like, what are you saying? What are you saying right now?
It's like saying that like anyone who has ever, you know, fought for some kind of improvement in their living condition or for their rights is like destabilizing something. Right. It's like, oh, you know, the people who fought for a freaking like 5-day work week, you know, 100 years ago, like they were destabilizing the American economy. It's like, oh, darn those, you know, those uppity labor people. It's just like, oh God, it's just so out of touch, man. It's like we're seeing so much of this stuff, like just the corporate. This is like the most corporate thing you could possibly be.
It really is, and him going on and on. And again, he said this months ago. People who aren't familiar with the story, he said they did an internal investigation. They found no like pattern of misconduct. In this article alone, it goes on to say that there was 106. Okay, according to the report. This is from this is a transparency report from Blizzard themselves. According to the report, the company investigated 116 complaints, was able to substantiate 31 of them. Bro, 31 is a pattern. I'm sorry, 31 already is a pattern. If there's two, you know what that is? A pattern.
Yeah, it's like, you know, one is an accident, 2 is a pattern, 3 is a chronic illness or something like that. You know, it's like it's like, yeah, it's a big company. There's hundreds of employees, maybe thousands. I actually don't know the exact number. So you could say statistically, blah, blah, blah. But it's like,
that's
still a lot.
31
That's a lot of
people. A ton. 31 is a lot. And the fact that there's
31 people who had
their
116 complaints, 31 substantiated things where that's you know, forgive me for having, you know, empathy for other human beings, but like that's 31 people who had their lives disrupted by some kind of behavior or attitude or event that clearly hurt them either, you know, physically or emotionally. And it's like that's serious business, man.
That's a
Like,
lot of people, dude. That's a lot of
yeah,
people, and that's the ones that they made public. And
yeah,
it even goes on to say that so the 31 that they were able to substantiate, those result in some kind of disciplinary action. However, the report appears to omit the total number of claims it received, which is
mm,
yeah, that's fucking convenient.
yeah. And
So who
it's like
knows?
whether there was discipline taken or not, it's like you clearly have some kind of environment where people feel, excuse me, either like empowered to some degree to behave this way, you know, like that I think there's enough evidence to say that like that was an issue at Blizzard, probably still is in some parts of the company, and like, you know, they got to clean the house, they got to.
And for people who are who people who like need some kind of concrete examples, and these are things that I'm pretty sure Blizzard themselves have did acknowledge have happened. But I'm just going to read the top of this article where it says, in 2021, the state of California sued Activision Blizzard, alleging that the video game publisher fostered a pervasive culture of harassment going back years. Details in the suit spoke of cube crawls where male employees would get drunk and walk around the workplace, subjecting female employees to inappropriate behavior. It alleged that male employees would pawn off responsibilities to their female coworkers. Um, how women of color were passed up for opportunities given to less tenured workers, and how senior World of Warcraft develop how a senior World of Warcraft developer was so infamous for her harassment of women that his office was nicknamed the Cosby Suite. That is fucking
Yeah.
insane, dude.
Oh yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, no pattern though, no pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But news of the suit was just the opening salvo and what would become a battery of reporting documenting the kinds of harassment that went on at Activision Blizzard. Current and former employees shared their stories, including how a woman was demoted for allegedly reporting her harasser, how a nursing mother had her breast milk stolen from company refrigerator,
That's the
and how
wildest one.
that's insane, and how one employee's sexual harassment led to their death by suicide.
Yeah.
Dude, the fact that you can go into a Variety or and Washington Post or whatever and just
With
say
your puppy dog eyes in
with
the
your puppy
camera
dog
and
eyes and
say,
say there was never a pattern ever. Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry. Like that's ridiculous, brother. And then to not even do that, but to go another step farther and say the labor unions.
they're the ones causing problems now, like,
I guess he's implying that they planted these stories
yeah,
to
or
try and
something
make
like that,
Blizzard
or
look
they're,
bad.
yeah, or
But
like they're the ones digging it up or something like that,
yeah,
in which case like it's something to dig up, so, you know, like it's not their
dude,
fault.
it's insane. I don't believe a word that Bobby says. I'm sorry. Like
My
in this case,
the big
any of these
takeaway I think
cases.
from this too is like some people were, you know, like the whole acquisition by Microsoft is still up in the air. That's still a whole thing. And it's like people were wondering, you know, if it goes through or if it doesn't either way, like, you know, is Bobby Kotick going to be involved? Is he going to stay with the company? Is he still going to keep leading it? Like these puffy ass interviews, these are not the words of a man who is acting like he's going to step aside in any way whatsoever. You know, like I think this
No,
man's going to keep leading the ship like 100% regardless.
he's on the PR tour for sure, and
Yeah.
I think when they thought the Microsoft deal was a done deal, they didn't give a shit, and now that I think it's not, I think they are preemptively starting a PR tour in case they have to go back on the sales block for
Yeah. Yeah.
themselves to try and
Good
sell off
point.
to another company. I think they're trying to make themselves look good preemptively. I don't think they feel good about the Microsoft deal. I really don't. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the CMA blocked it. Apparently, if the CMA, the EU, or the FTC block it, it's like dead. The
Hmm.
EU has approved it since we spoke last, I believe, which was kind of annoying. And I think they threw some shade at the CMA. But you
Mm.
know, I personally can't look at the CMA's report, which is so thorough and has such a in-depth understanding of the landscape, and most importantly, not only has an in-depth understanding of the landscape, has an underlying understanding of how rapid technology evolves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That today's merger might not be indicative of what the landscape looks like in 10 years when the cloud deals that they signed expire, that it wouldn't be detrimental to the landscape within 5 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
let alone like 1 year, 2 years. So it's very impressive. And I think like anyone who tries to cite against that just wants COD to be on Game Pass, or is Bobby Kotick and wants a new yacht.
Bobby wants COD on Game Pass.
Yeah, for real.
He's like, I'm not going to pay for it.
But
Bobby said, I have a Game Pass subscription and I want to play Call of Duty.
That's the only reason he wants to sell. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Don't
Not
worry
to
though.
make billions, but
Diablo
yeah, dude.
4,
Let's leave Bobby in the dust. Let's leave Bobby in the dust and move on to.
Yeah, we'll hear from him again, I'm sure.
Bobby's going to be around a lot over the next couple months.
We can't get away from him.
He's going to be around a fucking ton. Some brighter news, dude. Knights of the Old Republic remake might not be dead yet.
Oh, the nicest thing you could possibly say.
A recent financial report. Somehow the KOTOR returned.
This remake, I swear to God, dude, like what a weird journey. Like this company, Asper, you got these guys. What's going on with them? Are they good? Has anyone checked in on them?
Let's read the top here. So the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake is in an uncertain state right now, but the recent report does at least suggest that it's still in development. It's safe to say that since its announcement in 2021, things haven't been sounding too good for the remake of Knights of the Old Republic. A report last year claimed that development had ceased due to multiple key members of the staff being fired from the developer, Asper. Now, as it first reported from Insider Gaming, the full year report for Embracer Group seems to confirm that Knights of the Old Republic is still in development, even if that doesn't mean much for how far along it might be. The project is listed as under active development in the section titled Announced PC/console releases as of May 24th, 2023, where a number of the upcoming titles are listed. There's not really much else about the game in there other than the fact that it's coming to PC and PS5, which you already knew, and that it has an external publishing partner. Yeah, really interesting. Honestly, this doesn't say a lot to me either. I don't think this is like as
they could have just like not updated their website, like or who knows.
Like active development to me just means that they're even like talking about it.
Someone's getting paid to talk about it, like that basically is what that means.
Like they could still be in like early concepting. It could just be like because they have worked on the game prior, like those things that were worked on just exist and they're trying to figure out what to do.
I wonder, man, like there was also another article that I just saw earlier too. I meant to bring it up. It's like, I think Asper, the same company, was working on bringing like old content to Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is famously like an unfinished game. And there's like a patch you can download on the PC version to add some of that. Cause people, like the voice lines and script stuff was in the game. And Asper had done, Asper had, I believe, done ports of the game for like the Switch. I think, maybe
weren't
for,
those like kind of a disaster?
Yeah, they were kind of a disaster. And apparently they had been, or had said that they were going to bring DLC to Knights of the Old Republic 2, like an old game, to bring this content back to life. And I believe they just canceled that.
Cool.
Or said that they're not doing it. So it's like
Asper.
Yeah, it's like they're an interesting studio. Like they've done a bunch of porting stuff in the past, and like the fact that I was nervous when it was announced that they were the ones working on this remake in the first place, because like nothing against the talented people who work there, but it's just like the track record does not indicate, I don't know, like a rich experience with like reimagining a game. And like I love Knights of the Old Republic; it's one of my favorite games of all time. But it's the kind of thing where like a remake of that game, like what, you have to figure out what that even looks like. I feel like you have to have like a really strong vision behind it. I think it really demands a very competent I would want like a Sony first party studio to work on it, something like that.
Sure.
Someone who has real experience with like narrative driven games, like, complex environments, like just really, really stunning graphical detail. And I don't know, like the fact that it's kind of like been back and forth. I'm like, is this just going to be like an asset flip with, like 4K textures? I have no idea.
100%. And I didn't play KOTOR, so I'm not like, which is for anyone listening, not familiar with shorthand for Knights of the Old Republic, but I didn't play KOTOR. Dude. I know. I somehow escaped me, but I was hyped for the remake so I could finally dig into it. I know it has like some of the franchise's like most loved villains and characters.
The villains, the setting.
It's a bummer. Good. I wanted to see the light of day, but I wanted to see the light of day in a proper state. I think like we're we've gotten very lucky that like Remake has pretty quickly gone from a toss up of good or maybe like not so good to like how do we improve upon the original, right? Where we see this with like RE4 was like a
Yeah.
really really good
Yeah.
example of
It's
that.
a reimagining in a way
Yeah, but it's still like very much the same thing. Versus like Last of Us 1, which was like kind of dumb remake in my opinion, like just very unnecessary, especially for the price, where they didn't really do anything besides make it look nicer. So I don't know, we'll see. I hope it's the second one where it's, you know, you reinvent on what the game is, how it fits into 2023 or 2025, who knows when we get it, but you know what I mean. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And then something else that's interesting, we'll touch on this super quickly because I want to get to some other stuff, but Alan Wake 2, which is another title I know you're really excited for, is getting a digital only release to keep the price lower, which I don't buy that at all.
Strange argument to make.
Strange argument to make. Just I'll read this really quick. Alan Wake 2 finally has a release date, but Remedy Entertainment has shared that it will have a digital release only. Earlier this week, Remedy Entertainment finally shed a proper look at the upcoming survival horror game Alan Wake 2, the long-awaited follow-up to the 2010 original. It's looking incredibly good, but for the physical collectors out there, you're going to hit a bit of a snag. According to Remedy itself, a physical release isn't planned at this point in time, apparently because it means that it can keep the cost of the game lower, which I don't understand this argument. I don't know what's driving this decision, and I think it's kind of a negative trend for the future. But how are you feeling?
I feel very worried about it. It to be honest, like it has made me less interested in getting than playing the game, at least at launch. I don't know. It's like I've worried. I think a lot of people have worried that like this is sort of like the inevitable path of gaming in many ways.
Yeah, like Project Q, cloud gaming type things.
Yeah. Like, and I didn't expect that it would sort of happen so soon with like a big. And I love Remedy's games. I think they're a fantastic development house, and
Control's dope.
Yeah, Control's dope. The original Alan Wake is dope. Quantum Break, I've never played it. I've heard that's great.
Oh, I didn't know that was them. Dude, Quantum Break is awesome. I feel like Quantum Break's underrated, honestly. I feel like it didn't get enough love.
It's just odd because like they are a developer that kind of has a history of like delisting games for like, you know, copyrighted music or issues with like FMVs and contracts, you know, like actor stuff and whatnot. And it's like that they are the company saying like, yeah, we're actually like never going to release a physical version of this. It's just like, I don't know. And the cost saving thing, I guess I could say like, if you're imagining like, okay, you know, a full giant printing of something, like, yeah, you could probably save money on that. But it's like, there are companies out there like Limited Run Games, like there are places that do smaller printings of games. And it's like, there are people.
And I actually love those companies because they put a lot of care into their into those releases. Like actually like that this Cuphead Marionette is a collector's edition of when I got through, I think I Am 8-bit, I think was, but they're similar to Limited Run.
Yeah. It's like there are ways for if you truly, you know, I think if you truly care about your community of players, there are ways to produce limited but very nice physical versions of the game. And I think that that's still something that you should do regardless, especially if it's a big budget game like this, where
especially even more with a game that has like a cult around it, like Alan Wake.
Yeah. And the first game was great. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And it does make me worried because it's like the trend I see is less like, oh, you know, we're saving money, like physical sales are down anyway. It's more like, you know, you then have complete control over the product, like the pricing, the availability, like it takes any and all agency away from the player, from the owners of the content, which, you know, we see happen with a lot of like digital releases on Steam, and consoles are digital only anyway. Like it's not an uncommon thing, but I don't know, man, for like big projects like this, it just feels so weird to me to not have some way of owning and preserving a physical version of the game.
And you're bringing up that sales numbers for physical games are down. But what I think is really interesting is I found this tweet, and I did open up this article. There are some cited sources in here. So I didn't like number crunch them myself. So take them with a slight grain of salt. You want to look into these numbers yourself if you're thinking if you're a little critical of them. But these are some numbers from Europe where Jedi Survivor, 45% of sales were physical. Dead Space Remake sold comfortably better in a box versus digital. I don't know what that means exactly. But RE4 sold very slightly better digitally, to the point where apparently the sales digital versus physical were about 50-50. Which that's, to me, these are numbers from Europe. So that's one thing. The Western market is obviously huge, but the American market, but I still think like the physical numbers, the physical release numbers are still there. It's not like something that needs to be dropped like a hot potato. It's like not like people aren't buying physical games. So 45% of sales for Jedi Survivor, 50-50 on RE4 Remake. That's a lot. That's a lot of sales.
A lot of copies. It comes off less to me as like, I don't know. I don't necessarily like, I'm prescribing malicious intent here to Remedy Entertainment, but like it comes off to me as less like a legitimate argument for, like, no, trust us, like this is going to be better for you guys, like you'll save money on the game, like blah blah blah, and more like we just want to have complete control of the availability of the software. We feel like maybe our internal research has showed that like pre-owned copies has eaten into our profits a bit, or like we've had to do all this delisting stuff in the past, and contractually it will be easier and more profitable for us to own all distribution of this game. 100%. There is no second party or third party market.
Exactly. That's what it is. Just say it. Just say it with your chest.
Yeah.
Just say it with your chest. And also like, the cult around it, they'll greatly appreciate collector's editions.
I would love to have like a physical copy of this. Like, and yes, like in many ways, physical disc-based games these days are little more than, like installation method and DRM, but like you can still do it. You still have the content there to some degree. And if you're doing like a more limited run, you can put more work into it to buy the bigger capacity discs, to have the full game on there, to like, or release it now. And then like, after there's been a few patches, release like a complete edition that actually has the full content on the disc. Like that would be great. But they're basically just saying like, nope, there is no physical version. There never will be a physical version. It's just something about that to me. I don't know. It makes it feel like you're, and this is the case, for any digital game, but it's like, what are you really paying for? Like, what are we really buying? I don't know. It makes you stop and think about that for the first time. Me, at least.
Yeah. It's not a great look. I hopefully they reverse it. I hope it doesn't become a trend.
Yeah. Cause there was like other companies, like I think Limited Run Games actually like tweeted at them being like, we'll do it. We haven't heard from you. Like, we'll do it.
Yeah. I'd be surprised.
We'll
if
give
it
you a
stays
deal.
This
we'll
way.
catch you a deal.
And I'd be surprised if it stays this way in totality. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do wonder.
But last but not least, so yeah, I never played Alan Wake, so it looks a little too. Honestly, it looks a little too scary for me.
Yeah, it's a little spooky. The first one was pretty spooky.
But I'm happy for all the horror heads out there.
Yeah.
But all right, last but not least, we finally have some answers on what happened with Arcane's latest release, Redfall.
Oh God, this was a journey to read and to learn about, man.
Yeah, this was a big journey.
Bless Jason Schreier putting out these articles, these deep dives, man.
Jason Schreier. I didn't pull up the Bloomberg one. I ended up actually subscribing to Bloomberg to read his article, which is really interesting. I'm sure people can find it out there on the internet. I highly recommend people read it. This is exactly the kind of thing I was looking for, because there was so much weirdness surrounding this release.
So much uncertainty.
Game that we talked about a couple weeks back when it came out. It dropped on May 1st or 2nd. Just there was something off about the game. Not even just in, it's a bad game. But coming from such a praised studio, it didn't add up.
It made no sense.
And I'll read a little bit of this. I actually have two articles, but I'll read a little bit of this one. And I it seems like it's a little bit of Arcane's fault, a lot of ZeniMax's fault, and then funny enough, like the only fault that Microsoft really had was not digging their claws deeper into it, I think,
Yeah, not
soon
checking
enough.
in more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think weirdly enough, I think the trust that Arcane earned from such good releases is one of the reasons why it ended up being so bad. But report most of Arcane Austin's Prey veterans quit during Redfall's development, and the ones that stayed hoped Microsoft would cancel it, which is insane.
What an indictment.
What an indictment, dude. Redfall ranks as one of the biggest disappointments of the year so far.
So
So
far.
disappointing, in fact, that PC Gamer's Tyler Culp scored it a 44% and deployed the potent phrase, "I'm having a miserable time." Fewer than 20 words into his Redfall review.
A miserable time.
But bad games don't fall far from the sky. More often than that, they're a culmination of a long chain of wrong decisions, limited resources, and plain old bad luck. Between playtest, mock reviews, and simple experiences, devs often know when their games are falling short of expectations. And a new report from Bloomberg has revealed that Arcane Austin was no different. In fact, according to the article, many of the studio's devs nursed a sly hope that Microsoft would straight up cancel the project after it bought ZeniMax in 2020. And for those who don't know, ZeniMax is the parent company of Bethesda, which I believe bubbles down to Arcane as well.
Yeah. A bunch of different studios.
Yeah. Bloomberg's investigation states that Redfall's development was afflicted by chronic understaffing. Arcane Austin's team of fewer than 100 people simply wasn't large enough for the job of creating a marquee, a multiplayer-focused shooter, a problem that wasn't helped as dispirited veteran devs began an exodus from the project as it limped along. Around 70% of the team members who had worked on Arcane's Prey had departed the studio by the time Redfall was ready for the store shelves, and the company struggled to replace their expertise. The article from Jason Schreier is like really interesting.
It's great. It's not too long a read. I recommend anyone go out and find it if you're really interested.
Yeah, it's on Bloomberg, which I actually ended up subscribing to them because I feel like over the last 2 months, Jason Schreier said some like banger pieces.
Yeah, and he's great.
I'm basically subscribing to Bloomberg to have access
for
to
Jason. Yeah, he's an asset to the company. That's for sure.
He's really great. He spoke with a lot of devs that worked for Arcane during Redfall, that worked on Redfall. Like this article says, basically, like a lot of devs wanted Microsoft to cancel it or at least reboot it.
Mm-hmm.
Some like really interesting things happened. It basically seemed like ZeniMax, when the game started development for this, they were making a big push for live service games like Fallout and Wolfenstein, right?
Yeah, and they're pushing a lot more content for Elder Scrolls Online too. Like they've been trying to kind of get that stream of revenue, service revenue for a long time.
Service revenue, exactly. And apparently, it was not a mandate that any studio does this, but it was very much so pushed by ZeniMax,
encouraged,
yeah. Which I'm sure if you ever worked in a corporate setting means like do it or you're out.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to stay until 10 p.m.
Yes,
but everybody else does.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And it's basically, I'm sure, I don't know who was head of Arcane at the time, but I'm sure he was spoken to and given he or she was spoken to and given a, we're not going to tell you what game to make, but this is what we want to see.
Yeah.
Are you in or you out type deal.
Yeah.
So, and nobody wants to lose their job at a massive studio in a praised studio like Arcane. So I'm sure, those things just kind of went along with. And Redfall started development under two guys. I forget their names, but the two directors, they were really excited about making it. But what ended up happening, it seemed, was that the design of the game started to gear towards single player game and multiplayer game at the same time because they were trying to build in these service elements. And it seemed like during development, the game kind of started not satisfying either type of player, multiplayer gamers or single player gamers. The design, apparently, the way that the game ended up, the design elements of the game, it was trying to service two different minds, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, like we had said before, and I think most folks who are familiar with Arcane, with their work and with the industry at large, were just so confused by this game. Like this is a company that's known. There's two Arcane studios. There's Arcane Lyon in France and Arcane Austin in Austin, Texas. And like both studios have put out immersive sim single player games, you know, kind of like first person exploratory combat with, you know, interesting narrative things. And it's like for them to come out with this like multiplayer service shooter was just so weird. I feel like everybody had the same question, was like, does anyone at the company like want to be making this game?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, like a lot of people didn't. It seems like maybe the vast majority of them didn't, because like 70% of the developers who worked on Prey, Arcane Austin's last release, left the company during the development of Redfall, which is crazy. That is a huge attrition.
Insane.
At that point, like if you only have 30% left, it's like, are you even still the same studio? You know, it's like the whole ship of Theseus thing. And like, it's the classic situation that I feel like we're seeing happen a lot these days, which is like these, you know, publishers or companies looking for, they're looking for the revenue. They're looking for the service rather than looking for just ideas and like good games. So to go to a company like this that's known for making these like immersive single player games and saying, hey, you're going to make like a multiplayer shooter is just like so unbelievably strange. And something that Jason Schreier touches on too is just like their issues with, you know, the understaffing and having trouble finding people to work on it, because like, again, like this is an issue at large in the industry, like the way, the secrecy behind things. And I can say, as a voice actor who's auditioned for a lot of games and done some, like NDAs are like incredibly strict. You often don't even know what the hell you're auditioning for, what you're working on. Like there's this whole thing where, so like people who are applying to Arcane Austin thinking,
right, they think they're going to work on the next Dishonored. They think they're going to work
it's
on
like,
the next
I love their
critically
games,
acclaimed, genre bending, you know, franchise.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm going to make Deathloop, I'm going to make Dishonored, you know, and then you're hired by the company, and then like you're working on a game as a service shooter, like multiplayer shooter. Like if you can't advertise the project that you're looking for people on, like you can't, it's hard to get people who have the experience in multiplayer shooters, who have networking game development experience. Like if you're someone who's only made single player games, like, do you even know how to like work within a networking environment, like a multiplayer environment? Like there's so many things that are just, so they couldn't find the right people. Like
in
people
Jason Schreier's article, they were basically saying that like they were interviewing people who thought that they were going to work on a single player critically acclaimed experience, and ended up working, they got brought in and found out that then at that point they found out they were going to work on a games as a service multiplayer. They almost got bait and switched, but it's the company they can't say, hey, this is what you're working on, because they hadn't announced the game.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, you know, no studio past a certain number of people. It's not like an individual, you know, they're made up of lots of people, but it's like, to me, you know, they have identities. Like you have people who, you have a team that is very good at doing certain things. It's almost like, if, I don't know, I'm trying to like some crazy analogy. And like, if, you know, Martin Scorsese was like contracted by Paramount Studios or something, and like, this is a man who makes, you know, like great films of a certain type, but like he was legally obligated to make something that they told him to. And then and someone went to Martin Scorsese and said like, hey man, like you have to make the next Transformers movie. Like, one, he doesn't want to do it. It's Martin Scorsese. He doesn't want to deal with Transformers and CGI. And two, if he makes it, it's not going to be good. It's going to be weird and strange.
He's not going to.
So it's like that.
He's not going to care, or he's not going to care, or it's going to be a totally different product that nobody's asking for.
Yeah.
In terms
so you have like
Transformers.
I think everybody at Arcane was really probably doing their very best, but it was just like square peg in a round hole. Like there was probably just so much confusion about why they were doing it in the first place. Like who was in charge, who had the ideas, like all over the place.
This is not speculation. This is like Jason Schreier talking to these devs. Nobody wanted to work on the game. Like it's like it was a bunch of devs. They had no interest in working on this game. Like Welsh said, there was a 70% turnover from Prey to this game. Prey was like critically acclaimed. It wasn't like commercially acclaimed, but critically it was beloved. And I think it's a result of holding companies who really only care about the holding companies and the publishers. They're the ones that care about making the money, right? They were kind of leading the charge on this trend to chase games as a service. I think it's a crime to ask a critically acclaimed studio to designate what their next game will be. You
Yeah.
let the studio designate that, and they will
Yeah.
deliver you a product that is good.
Yeah.
Now
Let
we're
the creative
seeing
people.
right, you put right, but people want to make money. I get that. I think like companies have to make money. I understand that, but I still think there's ways in which you can, even if you're going to dictate what that next product will be,
hmm
there are certain ways in which you can ensure that the product will be good, or if at any point maybe it shouldn't even be released. You know
Yeah.
what I
I
mean?
mean, it look like a company like Rockstar, for instance. Like, I don't know what the structure there is exactly, but like, they're owned by Take Two. Take Two is a $1 billion company. Like, they're obviously going to say to Rockstar, like, you're either making GTA 6, you're making the next Red Dead, something like that. Like they're the ones who kind of decide on the finances there. But it's like, if you're someone who's looking to work at Rockstar Entertainment, you know what kind of game you're going to make.
Right.
It's like
Right.
going into it. I think probably everybody who's working at Rockstar like is there with the understanding that like they're there to make Rockstar games. So if you're in a
100%.
situation like this where it's like these studios have identities, they have libraries, they have identities, and it's just so weird to basically look at them as, I don't know, like workhorses in a way. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of people who can make a thing, go make this thing. It's just like, maybe that worked in like the 90s with like Apogee Entertainment making like, CD-ROM games for like MS-DOS and those floppy disks, where it's like you could basically have a shop that's, pumping out game after game. It's like that, it doesn't work that way anymore. Like you have people who, yeah, it's like the ideas are, it's crazy. It really is crazy to me. And like I owe something of an apology to Microsoft just from like, I really thought that this was their goof up, but in a lot of ways, it turns out that like the project was already like royally effed by the
it
time
was ZeniMax. It was ZeniMax
yeah,
for sure. And I think the only blame I can really put on Microsoft in this sense is that like I could see a world in which they even saw the game and just did not give a shit about how bad it was in any way,
yeah,
because they have so few wins. They have so few headlines for Game Pass exclusives, true like first party exclusives for Game Pass, that I think they probably knew that like even if it's
yeah,
just a PR ride for a year and a half to have Redfall is coming to Game Pass as one of the headlines, sign up for Game Pass, get in the ecosystem on Game Pass, right? Like that's going to probably outweigh the game being bad. And I'm sure if you look at
yeah,
the numbers, it probably was worth it for them.
yeah. They probably to some degree broke even or something on the deal.
Yeah,
It's
100, I'm
like,
sure.
it's just a thing with, Microsoft being such a big company with so many divisions and stuff. It's like, it's just wild to me that you would pay, I forget the amount of money, but I know it was in the billions for ZeniMax, like that you would
It
pay
was
that much money.
7.6
$7.6
billion, which is very
billion
funny because
dollars.
I think Activision is 70, right? It's like $70 billion. And
Yeah,
I
a
think that
lot
just
more.
goes to show you like how much of the industry Activision is.
Yeah, yeah, huge. But the fact that Microsoft would make that acquisition and then like be hands off to the degree that they were, it's like it in a way that's good. You should obviously let the people make the thing that they're making, but like you wouldn't like have boots on the ground in there, like checking
Something.
in more often, something like that's a big investment. And
Right.
for them to just kind of be like, I mean, this is a reductive statement, but to kind of be like, we'll see. I'm sure they'll be fine. It's like,
Yeah. I
it
know.
wasn't.
I'm glad they're letting Microsoft I'm glad they're letting Arcane do their thing, but I don't believe that they fully had hands off in this case as much as they're saying. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it's just a trail of mistakes that will be changed over time, or get changed for Arcane's next game.
Yeah, I think in some ways, at least, like the bright side of this will be, well, I hope that Arcane Austin doesn't shut down. I hope these people don't lose their jobs because they're a great studio. They have the potential to do great things. Um, I hope that maybe this kind of like inoculates Microsoft a bit against this sort of thing happening again. Like, hey, like Phil Spencer said in his interview, like we learned a lot about what not to do here. Like, I think
Yeah, 100%.
I personally, Mr. Phil Spencer, and the people I work with, have learned that we need to be
Phil
in the
Welsher.
room. Like that's me.
No, I 100% agree. I hope Microsoft uses their resources to make the things that they bought better. Like, what else did you buy these things for? You know, and I hope the big thing I hope is that companies who are trying to make service games, who are thinking about making service games, see examples like this and say, okay, it's probably not worth it, because I want less and less of those. Now, let's sign off and let's go play Diablo 4.
6 minutes, baby. The servers are going to be utterly
6 minutes. Everybody's new favorite game as a service is coming out. Let's go.
Speak of the devil.
Put your fucking Zelda down. Put Hyrule away. It's time to fucking buy $28 skins, baby.
You're going to Sanctuary.
Bobby, I love you, baby. Let me buy that.
Rolling a barbarian. Bobby's playing tonight. You know he pre-ordered.
I know. I'm stoked. I'm super excited for Diablo. I hope Blizzard gets back on the right track, and I do hope games as a service dies. But dude, let's get out of here. Let's go play some Diablo.
Hell yeah.
All right, dog. Same time next week. You can catch us at SRangPod here on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. You can also catch me Wednesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays over at twitch.tv/NoBananaSuits, and also on Twitter at NoBananaSuits, pretty much everywhere. And Welsh at Sean
everywhere
Welsh Brown
everywhere
Twitter,
tweets are sold. Yeah, you can find me at SeanWelshBrown on Twitter. Sometimes I tweet, sometimes I retweet. Believe it or not.
But yeah, thanks for joining. Everyone go play Diablo. We're gonna probably talk the shit out of it next week. So
for sure.
Let's see how everybody's barbarians are looking. All right, dude. Catch you next week.
Catch you later.
Peace.